I'll just leave from this awful place. 16 years ago, my sister-in-law Paisley said that and left her parents' house. At that time, Paisley was 25 years old. After graduating from college, she didn't work or have part-time jobs and instead lived off her parents' money, which caused her and her parents to have fights every day. I secretly wish that someday Paisley would come back and we could laugh together with my parents-in-law and husband. My name is Natalie and I'm 38 years old. My husband and I have known each other since childhood, and we've always been loved by my parents-in-law. Thanks to that, when the topic of living together with my parents-in-law came up, it was easily accepted. We don't have any children, but I think we were building a happy life. That's why when my mother-in-law passed away a year ago, I felt truly sad. At that time, the doctor recommended hospitalization, but since there was little hope for her condition to improve, my mother-in-law wanted to receive home care. For those few years, I became a full-time housewife and dedicated myself to caregiving, helping each other as a family, and spent the last moments with my mother-in-law peacefully. After the first-year death anniversary ceremony ended, and after my parents and my husband's relatives went home, I muttered, we still couldn't reach Paisley. My husband's face showed anger towards his sister, and he said, I don't know about that person anymore. She should regret it when she realizes that our mother is no longer here. Both my husband and I know that our mother-in-law worried about Paisley until the end. She must have wanted to see her one more time before passing away. That's why I understood why my husband said that. Since Paisley left home at 25 years old, she had never shown her face at my parents-in-law's house. Even when my husband and I decided to get married, we couldn't reach her and had the wedding ceremony without her. However, we didn't file a missing person report for police because Paisley was technically an adult, and occasionally she would contact my parents-in-law. However, it seemed that Paisley made efforts to ensure that we couldn't contact her, such as using a private number. She's truly an uncontrollable child. My mother-in-law sadly told me before seriously, I'm appalled at her daughter. My father-in-law sighed, like my husband, who is my childhood friend. I used to hang out with Paisley a lot when we were kids, but as we were getting older, her behavior became worse and gradually we grew apart. She did not follow school rules and dyed her hair brown, put on makeup, and it was normal for her to talk back to teachers. Skipping classes and getting caught by the police happened quite often. Every time that happened, my parents would tell me. Every time that happened, my parents-in-law, especially my mother-in-law, were called in and had to apologize. Paisley, who caused a lot of troubles, went on to college, but instead of finding a job, she continued to rely on my parents-in-law. I'll just leave this place, and ran away, never to be seen again, perhaps because he witnessed such actions from Paisley. My husband dislikes her and has taken her as a negative example.
I wonder where she is and what she's doing now. It seems she got married.
In the postcard, a kind-looking man and Paisley, dressed in a pure white dress, were smiling. 2 years ago, Paisley sent a message saying, I got married, and for the first time, we got her contact information, which made my parents-in-law happy. My father-in-law wrote a letter detailing my mother-in-law's condition and our marriage and sent it to the address provided. I still feel a pang in my heart when I remember my mother-in-law's disappointment at that time. I wondered what Paisley will do when she knows about her mother's death. While my miss did her selfishness, I understand my father-in-law's concern for his daughter. To call my husband, who continued to complain about Paisley, I gave him a cup of tea. A few weeks later, when I came back from work and was about to start preparing dinner, my eyes met my father-in-law's, who was on the phone. Then, he gestured me to come over and take the phone for him. Is it a scam? Who is this? He should have just silently ended the call. With a wry smile, I took the phone and switched it to speaker mode so that my father-in-law nearby could also hear. As my father's voice suddenly changed to mine, the person on the call sounded surprised. Judging from the voice, it sounded like a meme.
I am Natalie, the wife of the eldest son. Excuse me, may I ask who this is?
When I introduced myself, the man seemed satisfied and said, Oh, you're the wife of my wife's younger brother. It's nice to speak with you. I'm Paisley's husband. I wiped my eyes in astonishment. I understood the reason why my father-in-law was confused, and I myself was also muddled.
Yes, we apologize for not coming to see you all. Paisley insisted on only sending you a postcard announcement. At that time, my parents were no longer alive, so I didn't know how to go about getting married to someone, and I thought that our intention was all that mattered. It,
Indeed, I think that was rude. While furrowing his brow, my father-in-law listened attentively.
in addition, my work was busy and chaotic. I now realize it was a mistake. I apologize for all the rudeness.
The man who introduced himself as Paisley's husband apologized politely. Whether it was due to his sincere regret being conveyed, my father-in-law nodded at me. So we decided to continue listening to the conversation without hanging up. Then Paisley's husband stutters, and with a genuine sense of apology, he says the following:
Until now, at my wife's request. Yes, I've been providing financial assistance for my mother-in-law's hospitalization expenses, but with my income, I can't bear any further the burden. I'm truly sorry.
But to our unexpected surprise, both my father-in-law and I shouted, "Huh." Paisley's husband continues to apologize further and explains various things. It seemed that when Paisley and her husband had just gotten married, they heard that my mother-in-law was hospitalized from my father-in-law. Paisley then said, "I've been annoying my parents for so long, so I want to help. But as a full-time homemaker, it's difficult for me. I wanted you as my husband to help." It's a strange story. My father-in-law doesn't have any way to contact Paisley. "By the way, how much has it been so far?" I asked, and he responds, It's been $15,000 this month." Upon hearing Paisley's husband's statement, my father-in-law holds his forehead. Since our family hadn't received any money, the hospitalization expenses Paisley requested should undoubtedly be in her pocket, using my mother-in-law as an excuse to withdraw money from her own husband. I felt anger. Truly, it's so unfilial. It's been a year since my mother-in-law passed away. Besides, both my parents-in-law and my husband haven't met Paisley properly for a long time. We didn't know anything because we didn't have your information like your address. All we knew is that Paisley got married.
Paisley's husband stutters, saying, Jura, of me? Is probably confused, which is understandable. I'm so upset now. You are upset now. I heard from Paisley that your mother is still facing illness, and I've been handing the money directly to your father every month. That means. That's a complete lie. That's a complete lie. We just finished the first death anniversary ceremony recently. Recently like birthdays. Ain't right here, side. I can't believe it tonight. It's raspberry. For an admirable. It's difficult for me to spell it out for him that he's been fooled by Paisley. But there's no use in comforting each other in this situation.
Upon hearing the facts I convey, Paisley's husband took a deep breath on the other end of the phone.
I don't know where you currently reside, but you come to our house and meet face to face. Indeed, there's no point in just talking on the phone. I also agreed and said, "Please do come. Thank you. I also want to apologize for everything that has happened so far, and I would like to hear your side of the story."
And so it was settled that Paisley's husband would visit our house alone. After the call with Paisley's husband, I explained the situation to my husband when he came home from work. My husband, like me, was not only appalled but also deeply disappointed. As later on, Paisley's husband visited our house and told us about Paisley's way of living so far. She's been saying she's estranged from her parents since the time of her marriage. Therefore, Paisley's husband had hopes that their relationship would improve with the assistance with my mother-in-law's hospitalization expenses. Actually, after the phone call from you, I heard from Paisley that your mother is still tackling illness. According to Paisley's husband, he independently searched where the money goes after the phone call and learned that Paisley cheated on him and was using the money for her lover. So, I have a request for all of you. With these words from Paisley's husband, we decided to carry out a certain plan. 1 month later, my husband and I were at the airport. In front of us there was Paisley, but she did not realize us. Seeing Paisley after a long time, she was wearing a short dress and walking in high heels, carrying a suitcase and swaying her hips. Paisley is supposed to be 41 years old this year. As a family member, it was embarrassing to watch. Suddenly, Paisley stopped. It was because it wasn't the person she had arranged to meet, but rather her husband and father-in-law who were waiting for her. Without hesitation, we started moving. Paisley's face turned pale as she turned around only to find us right in front of her, and she slumped down right there on the spot. Although Paisley was still confused of the situation, we took her and headed to her home in the car. Where's Logan? Why are Dad and the others here? And why is even Natalie, a complete stranger, here? Inside the car, on the way to Paisley's house, Paisley started making a fuss. I thought she wouldn't notice me since it had been so long since we last met, but she remembered me and I was surprised. While driving, Paisley's husband kept his face forward and calmly said, "Your lover. But Logan isn't coming. We've already settled things between us. He's breaking up with you. Of course, I am going to break up with you as well. I'm truly disappointed in you, even though I was giving you money for my mother-in-law's sake." My husband, while shouting at Paisley, replied, "Why we're here should be obvious to you more than anyone else. And Natalie is now my wife, a respectable family member. Is Natalie my sister-in-law? Since Paisley left home before we got married, she probably never imagined that I became her brother's wife." My father-in-law sat silently with his arms crossed in the passenger seat. The plan that Paisley's husband asked us to carry out was to capture Paisley. We knew about her trip with her lover in advance, so we got to the airport ahead of her. Perhaps he wanted to give some emotional damage and break up with her. Also, it seemed that when Paisley's husband spoke with a lawyer beforehand, the lover begged to let him go, agreeing to break up with Paisley and never contact her again. Although the husband still intends to make him pay compensation. It's quite a hellish situation for Paisley, who was about to go on a happy trip with her lover. However, her wrongdoing was exposed, leading to her divorce. Or her plan be considered a success? I guess. I looked at my pale-faced Paisley's profile and whispered in my mind. We arrived at the apartment where Paisley lived, and the discussion began with an uneasy atmosphere. Paisley was dragged and made to sit on the floor, glaring at her husband with dissatisfaction. So, the fact that Dad and the others are here means that the hospital expenses issue got exposed, right? That's right. I lied and made you pay for the money to spend with my lover. Seriously, you were such an easy target. But what about Mom? Is she really hospitalized? Even though she didn't know anything, Paisley's words were meant to rub our family the wrong way. I desperately held back my husband, who was about to lunge at her. Mom passed away a year ago, but you were absent. Natalie mainly took care of her with devotion. With my father-in-law's statement, Paisley, who had been nervously fidgeting, stopped her movements. "What? Are you kidding?" Paisley raised a dumbfounded voice, but it seemed like she understood from our expressions and started shedding tears. "This can't be true. Why didn't you let me know?" "It's because you completely cut off your contact from us, sis," Paisley mumbled in response to her husband's retort. He was right. She had no idea how my mother-in-law wanted to see her again before she passed away, and she was fooling around with a man. Moreover, using the money she extorted from her own husband by utilizing her mother. If I were Paisley, I wouldn't be able to keep my sanity. As I looked at Paisley crying and looking down, I thought she would repent from here and apologize to my father-in-law, husband, and Paisley's husband. However, I soon realized that such thoughts were naive. "Wow, so you ended up marrying my brother. Natalie, you compromised with someone close. You were always dull-looking since you were a child, so to be honest, I'm not surprised." Realizing there is no way to escape, Paisley leaned back on the sofa, crossed her legs, and wiped away the tears from her eyes. Then she smirked at me. I tried to calm my husband down, whose face was red with anger, and responded firmly to Paisley. "It's not fair to say it was a compromise. And aren't you ashamed to act like that? Don't you feel sorry for your father and the others? Stealing money with making up lies about our mother. It's unbelievable. Your mother was worried about you until the end. For a brief moment. That's right. Just from now on, I'll be a good daughter." I was dismayed by Paisley's statement.
"But my cheating got exposed, right? I'll get divorced, won't I? Then I'll go back to my parents' house. That's normal, right?"
A wave of anger washed over me. Her family, as well as Paisley's husband, looked completely disgusted.
"You're no longer my daughter. I'm cutting ties with you." His voice was so intense that everyone in the room froze in fear.
My father-in-law isn't the type of person who yells at someone else. And that's when Paisley realized that her father was serious. She started to apologize, pressing her head down on the floor.
"I'm sorry. I didn't know what to do, so I pretended to be strong. I know I did wrong. I truly regret it. I'm so sorry for everything until now."
My father-in-law glanced at Paisley for a moment, then said to her husband, "I'll leave the rest to you," and left the room. Desperately, Paisley pleaded, "Wait, but my father-in-law didn't turn back. He probably thought it was unnecessary to talk to her anymore. We'll get in touch with you later." Paisley's husband apologized to us. When my husband and I were about to leave, Paisley said, "You won't get away with this." I wondered if she regretted anything, and I shrugged my shoulders. I knew that if she visited her parents' house based on her memory, she would find someone else's house there, or the land should be for sale, because father-in-law moved to a new home which my husband and I had built a few years ago. It was around that time that my mother-in-law's health had gotten bad, so moving to the house was more convenient for her medical appointments. The marriage announcement postcard from Paisley was only delivered to me thanks to the mail forwarding service. He and her husband found out their current address from my father-in-law on the phone. If only Paisley had shown a little concern for her own mother, at least things wouldn't have ended up like this. "It's too late now," I said as I remembered my mother-in-law's face. When I left Paisley's house, I heard Paisley crying out loud. A few months later, I received a message from Paisley's husband informing me that the divorce with Paisley had been finalized. The money Paisley had falsely gotten would be repaid to her husband. She would also have to pay compensation for cheating on him. It's such a shame that I completely believed Paisley's story. "I caused a lot of trouble. I sincerely apologize," said Paisley's husband, and he brought money as his apology. Even though my father-in-law refused to have that money, Paisley's husband did not give up. By now, Paisley, abandoned by her husband, her lover, and even her family, must be devastated. She must be filled with despair. Nowhere to go, she truly became all alone. I, on the other hand, will continue to live happily with my husband and father-in-law.